promotional fee has been paid to ABC by United Airlines. Come fly the friendly skies.
Charlie Gibson is just plain smart. It's as simple as that. He's book smart, street smart, people smart. He's also a lot of fun, very quick wit. He's the kind of guy you want to start the day with. That's our Charlie Gibson.
It only happens once a year, and the time is now. Everything goes. Raymore and Flanagan's fabulous Memorial Day sale. Best quality furniture and bedding at unheard-of prices. Deep markdowns today, noon till 5, and tomorrow 10 till 5 on Berkline, Richardson, Bassett, Broyhill, leather, and even carpeting. Plus, no interest or monthly payments for 6 full months. Yes, you heard it right. Everything goes at Raymore and Flanagan's Memorial Day sale. Once a year savings. Today, noon till 5, tomorrow 10 till 5.
Mako's Paint Plus. Get a Mako Supreme finish and Mako gives you $100 of body work free. Your car need body work? No problem. Get a beautiful Mako Supreme finish and $100 of free body repair now. Call for Mako.
Petty in a crashing performance at the checkered flag. We'll have all the action from the night racing under the lights coming up.
Many observers have been critical of NASCAR's sportsman division, but Mark Cox is one competitor hoping this series serves as a stepping stone to a Winston Cup ride.
And that's kind of been my whole focus. I was kind of hoping I'd go from the sportsman division with a 3,500-pound cars right on into Winston Cup.
Inside Winston Cup Racing is brought to you by cold-filtered Miller Genuine Draft and Miller Genuine Draft Light, taking the country by storm. Goodyear, #1 in tires. Champion Spark Plugs, the world's #1 selling spark plug, no matter what you drive. And by Ektar Film from Kodak. For advanced photographers, the genius is in the details.
When Hoppy Wheeler, the president of the Charlotte Motor Speedway, decides to do something, he don't fool around. He goes full bore, and such was the case in lighting this place. Now, that was no easy chore, but I'll tell you, they did it right. It was exciting to watch the cars under the lights. But that excitement was marred to a great degree because there was tragedy on the first night of an official event here on Friday night in a sportsman qualifying race. For more on that, plus some other news that came out of Charlotte last week and highlights of the Winston Open, here's Bill Weber.
Ned, on top of the news, a sad story to report from the Speedway. 40-year-old sportsman division driver Gary Batson died from the injuries he received during the qualifying race for the Winston 100 sportsman division competition. Batson's car and the car of Neil Cannell got together early in the race. Cannell was able to get out of his car, but both cars burst into flames and Batson was trapped. He received burns over 80% of his body and passed away the afternoon of Saturday, May 16th. Atlanta Falcons coach Jerry Glanville made his sportsman debut here at Charlotte. He did not make the top 30 cars that automatically advanced to the Sportsman 100, so he had to compete in the qualifying race. But he suffered clutch problems late in that competition, dropped out of the race, so he's still looking for his first Sportsman division start. And there was some excitement here early in the week at the Charlotte Motor Speedway when Neil Bonnet climbed into a Winston Cup car that is owned by Dale Earnhardt. Bonnet called it a shakedown of the car and him, but as of now, no plans for Neil to return to racing. 25 drivers were hoping to earn a wild card to the Winston with a victory in the Winston Open. Brett Bodine had his Quaker State Ford on the pole and led the field into the race. On the opening lap, Greg Sachs made a great recovery in turn 2 after getting sideways in traffic. Michael Waltrip led the leaders back to the line, but on lap 4, Bodine took his fast Ford to the front with Marlin right behind. Waltrip dropped to 3rd with Dick Trickle 4th and Hut Strickland 5th. On lap 11, Gary Ballou got loose in turn 2, bringing out the first of 2 caution flags. On lap 13, Marlin tamed his wobbly Ford in turn 4 and chased down Brett in turn 1, taking the lead for the first time and holding it the next 16 laps. Waltrip's Pennzoil Pontiac appeared to be the most persistent pursuer, with Trickle the trailer, and while Bodine began to backpedal, Strickland was on the move forward. The fastest car in the field may have been Sachs. With fresh tires and a fresh start, Sachs was surging from last to 6th by lap 30. Bobby Hamilton took a shortcut in his country time car, getting loose, driving through the grass, then getting back in the gas and racing to a 7th place finish. Meanwhile, Michael moved past Marlin in turn 3 to recapture the lead on lap 31. Moments later, Sterling slipped to 3rd when Strickland slid by. H.B. Bailey brought out the final caution, tangling with the turn 2 wall on lap 38, setting up an 8-lap sprint for a ticket to the Winston. Waltrip waited to the last second, then darted down pit road for fresh tires, with most of the field in tow. Bodine did not pit, and while he was leading, he wasn't winning. His Ford fell from 1st to 6th in the final 5 laps. Waltrip was the man to watch, with Hutt hot on his heels. Waltrip went around Bodine on lap 46, leaving the fans a 2-car race to the finish. Strickland led laps 47 and 48, but Waltrip zoomed around him on lap 49 and took the checkers by half a second. An impressive Sachs was 3rd, followed by Trickle and Jimmy Hensley.
It was a great race. I'm just glad to be standing here. I'm very proud for my whole race team. Bahari Racing is a great organization. They stuck behind me and stuck with each other when we were down, but now we're not. We're back, we're up, and we're real excited about tonight, and thanks Pennzoil for sticking with us.
Well, I tell you what, me and Mikey just was like 2 men possessed out there trying to work our way back up through the field there. We was driving like wild men, and, I thought we was going to have a little bit of problem there. Once we caught Brett, I seen we had it nicked, and we just went ahead and, tried to open up some ground there.
Well, the Winston Open always is exciting as they try to get one of those 2 positions. Unfortunately, all of those drivers couldn't get in the Winston. And speaking of the Winston, we'll have highlights of it after we take a short break. We'll also have a profile on sportsman driver Mark Cox. And as we leave you for this break, here's our final Richard Petty profile.
Brought to you by Champion Spark Plugs. No matter what you drive.
Richard Petty and his 200 Winston Cup wins is known all over the world as the cat with the cowboy hat, sunglasses, and toothy grin. But in a career that spans over 30 years, the man they call the King has also been involved in some close calls. And none were more memorable than the close call in the 1988 Daytona 500. As the race wound down, Petty, a 7-time 500 champion, got bumped by driver Phil Barkdahl. The pictures that follow speak 1,000 words. As Petty's Pontiac came to rest, his career and possibly his life appeared in danger. But never underestimate the resiliency of Richard Petty. 1 week later in Richmond, Virginia, the King was back doing what he loves to do, race stock cars. And the fans were glad to have him. This Petty profile brought to you by Champion Spark Plugs. Call 1-900-288-PLUG for the latest information on NASCAR events and have the option to receive a 1992 Champion Racing Kit, plus a chance to win a trip for 2 to one of our 4 selected Winston Cup races. 1-900-288-PLUG. $2.95 per call. Must be 18 years or older. Void where prohibited by law.
The sportsman division is a brainchild of Humpy Wheeler, the president of the Charlotte Motor Speedway. He wanted a division whereas drivers without experience could come and run on a 1.5-mile track and get experience if they wanted maybe one day to move into the Grand National or Winston Cup racing. Well, Mark Cox has used it precisely for that. Our Bill Weber had an opportunity this past week to spend some time with Mark Cox.
Yeah, we're here. This racetrack I've always liked a lot, and I had a lot of experience here, and the sportsman division just, it reminds me so much of Winston Cup, where my goal, that's where I'm headed, so.
Mark Cox has a driving desire to race, and for 7 years he has funneled his efforts into building a foundation that he hopes will carry him to the Winston Cup Series. Mark began racing motorcycles when he was 12. At 18, he advanced to the expert ranks and competed on the Camel Pro Series Dirt Track Tour for 4 years. Last year, Mark shelved his business career to pursue racing as a full-time profession.
Well, I'll tell you, this is a big show. It's a great feeling for me because I have a new sponsor this year with Bojangles Chicken and Biscuits, and you know, this is a real big show. I love racing in front of the Winston Cup audience and the Winston Cup fans, and it just creates a real big atmosphere for us. And this is a live television event for our series, and it'll not only help our series, but you know, it'll help us drivers to obtain more sponsors and you know, just help us grow in the sport.
Cox began this weekend 6th in points in the late model division at Concord Speedway near Charlotte, and last weekend returned to CMS for the season opener of the 7-race Sportsman Series.
It was really designed for guys that race weekly short tracks to take their engine out of their short track cars and put them in a super speedway car, buy an obsolete car that they're no longer running in Winston Cup, and race on a super speedway and just gain the super speedway experience. And it's so expensive to race Busch Grand National. You know, I looked at that step, and I tell you, those guys have to have $500,000 to run that series, and it's just not feasible. It's not there every day. This division allows a lot of guys to get some experience and maybe make that next step. And I'll tell you, it's been a tremendous help to me.
Cox has been able to sharpen his skills in the Sportsman Series since its inception in 1989, when he drove an old Darrell Waltrip car. Twice he has sat on the pole, and last May he started second and finished second in the Goodies 150. Mark has been successful in this series, which allows drivers with limited superspeedway experience to race 3,500-pound cars with restricted V8 engines at speeds above 150 miles per hour, a combination that has contributed to some serious on-track situations.
You know, unfortunately, we've had a couple in this division, and it's had its ups and downs, but, you know, there's accidents in any kind of racing. There's fires in any kind of racing, not just Sportsman, but Winston Cup, any division. And, you know, that's just part of it. That's, you know, the safety equipment is out there. It's available for all the drivers. And in my opinion, I've tried to be as safe as I possibly can in a race car by all means, because, I mean, you can, you know, expect the unexpected.
Cox qualified 5th in the 40-car field, looking for his first Sportsman win. And last Saturday, Mark prepared for the first of 3-point races within 8 days at Charlotte, a 40-car field going 100 miles. Mark was strong, running in traffic with the leaders, never falling further back than 7th, and spending most of the 67 laps in the top 5. The race was slowed by 5 caution flags. Cox battled with Dennis Setzer, Freddie Query, and Peter Gibbons, all chasing pole sitter and eventual winner, Robbie Faggart. A multi-car crash 10 laps from the finish forced the field to finish under the yellow, with Mark and the Bojangles Hampkey Racing Chevrolet finishing 4th.
How hard is it, Mark, to get from where you are now to where you want to be?
Well, I feel like I'm getting closer and closer, but, you know, experience is something you can't buy. It's something you have to get. And, you know, I'm hoping that, you know, in the next couple of years that I'm going to be able to make that step into Winston Cup. A lot of guys say, you know, you got to go to Busch Grand National, you got to go to Busch Grand National. But, you know, I really like these heavy cars. You know, the way I look at it is maybe if you can get into Winston Cup and then take that slowly a step at a time, then, you know, you'll be growing in that division, and that's where you want to go. And that's kind of been my whole focus. I was kind of hoping I'd go from the Sportsman division with a 3,500-pound cars right on into Winston Cup.
Well, Mark certainly seems to have his priorities in order, and with his PR ability, he should go a long way in the sport. We need to take a short break. Still to come are highlights of the Winston. We'll also have the mailbox. And as we leave you for this break, here's this week's Kodak Speedway Snapshot.
This week's Kodak Speedway Snapshot is brought to you by Ektar Film from Kodak. For advanced photographers, the genius is in the details.
Davey Allison had just come off a week where he had pocketed the prestigious The Winston All-Star race, which included earnings of $325,000. 1 week later, heading into the 1991 Coca-Cola 600, Allison was considered the favorite by the fans and the media race morning of the 600. Then suddenly, just 2 hours before race time, car owner and engine builder Robert Yates found a problem with the race engines. The decision was to pull the power plant and go with a backup. 45 minutes later, the engine was up and running. 4 hours after that, Davey was posing in victory lane as the winner of the Coca-Cola 600. Next week, you'll see Davey Allison as he attempts to take the Coca-Cola 600 for the second year in a row. But this time, it could be worth big bucks. We'll have the story as Davey goes for the Winston Million.
The Busch Grand National Series returns to the super speedways with a stop at Charlotte. Dale Earnhardt led a Winston Cup sweep of the top 3 positions last spring. We'll have all the highlights from the Champion 300.
The Winston, the most hyped motorsports event in the world. And sometimes it lives up to its billing, too. There's always something exciting about it, one way or another. Maybe not fighting for the lead, maybe not the controversy that we've seen in the past, but there's always something that stands out. Such was the case this year. Randy Pemberton has the highlights.
The Winston All-Star Race at the Charlotte Motor Speedway will go down in history as the largest sporting event ever to take place under the lights in prime time. And the finish will be the only thing fans remember when they talk about this 1992 sporting spectacular. Davey Allison won the pole and led the field of 20 NASCAR top drivers as they raced off for $1 million under a full moon. The race, broken up into 3 segments, 30, 30, and 10-lap sprints, was led by Allison for the entire first leg, as Davey found no competition on his way to pocketing $50,000 as he got the checkered flag. During a 10-minute break, fans voted to invert the starting lineup for the second 30, placing Allison back in the pack and Jeff Bodine on the point. 8 laps into the second 30, Kyle Petty put his Pontiac out front and began to pull away from the pack. Petty went on to pick up the second $50,000 while Allison plowed his way into 6th behind Bill Elliott, Ken Schrader, Dale Earnhardt, Ernie Irvin, and Kyle. After a 4-lap caution period allowing teams to take on tires, Petty and his Pontiac once again pulled away from the pack. But just 3 laps in, Ricky Rudd, Alan Kawicki, Bill Elliott, and Darrell Waltrip all got together, and Darrell went for a drive through the infield grass to bring out the caution and bring the field back together. Earnhardt took the lead after leaning on Petty on the restart. Allison would also advance as Kyle lost momentum after contact. But Kyle came back. Petty pushed his Pontiac past Allison's Ford and then set his sights on Earnhardt. With less than a half a mile left, Petty was there, and that took the air off of Earnhardt's Chevy. Dale slid into the wall, leaving Kyle and Davey to duel it out for $200,000. The two headed for the stripe. Allison on the bottom, Petty on the top. They touched and then touched again. Davey took the win and then took a ride after the checkered flag. The win was worth $300,000, but Allison never got to victory lane. His car destroyed, he was taken to a nearby hospital. A concerned crew collected the accolades. Davey was later diagnosed with a bruised lung and slight concussion.
Those guys have worked so hard to get, this is 4 total race cars and 9 races, and man, I mean, we won Daytona, we wiped the car out, we, came back, and if it wasn't for this winning, I believe some of these guys would probably turn their resignation in, including maybe myself. But now we love it, being in the hunt. That's where we like to be. We just got to try to get the car a little bit quicker next time so we're not in that situation.
Davey just had a really, really good run at us, and as we come off of 4 here, Davey got up under me, and I eased to the left, and we got together, and I just kept coming left, and he kept coming right, and, we run down through there, and he had enough power that as he got by me, as he cleared me, he was coming right, and I was going left, and he ended up spinning around, and I hate it. It's just one of those things that happens. I hope he's all right, and I'm not going to say that it's my fault because it's racing, and, we're trying to win just like everybody else is, and I'm not backing off and letting anybody go, but it's just one of those things.
Today's mailbox is brought to you by Miller Genuine Draft.
Our question this week is from Steve Jackson from Marietta, Georgia, who writes, how is the jack that a Winston Cup teams use different from the jack that you would see in a local garage? Well, Steve, for that answer, we'll go to Barry Dotson, who is the jack man on the Pure Later Chevrolets that Derek Cope drives.
Okay, Steve, that's a very good question. The biggest difference is this is a jack like you'd use in your shop. It weighs 130 pounds. This is a jack I use on race day. George Brunhosel makes it from New York. It weighs 33 pounds. The biggest reason for that is the weight difference to have a quicker pit stop and safety.
If you have any race questions, you can write to us at Inside Winston Cup Racing, Box 240-417, Charlotte 28224. If we use your question on the air, you'll receive this embroidered Miller Genuine Draft jacket free. Fans 21 and under will receive an IWCR cap and T-shirt.
Well, our time's up for today. Hope you enjoyed the show, and you be sure to be with us here next week on TNN because we'll be right back here at the Charlotte Motor Speedway. Lots going on here. See you then.
Inside Winston Cup Racing has been brought to you by cold-filtered Miller Genuine Draft and Miller Genuine Draft Light, taking the country by storm, and by Goodyear, #1 in tires. Transportation for Inside Winston Cup Racing crew provided by Fleetwood Enterprises, makers of a full line of excellent recreational vehicles. Promotional consideration and a fee paid for by the Champions, the official 20th anniversary commemorative edition of Winston Motorsports.